An LSU wide receiver is done for the season. How does that affect the Ole Miss game? We'll talk about it. And we got your score prediction. It's Locked on LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please smash that like button. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We'll get an LSU Ole Miss score prediction. Brian Kelly met with reporters and talked about how his defense specifically needs to improve on Saturday to make sure what happened a year ago doesn't happen again, complicated by the fact that LSU's down a couple of really key contributors, not only for the season, but also for this game. We'll delve into that. But Kelly started actually on his radio show Thursday evening after we learned Kyle Parker, the freshman wide receiver, was going to be out for this game. Brian Kelly took it a step further and announced that Kyle Parker is out for the season. So a little bit of a backstory. Kyle Parker is a redshirt freshman, and he is a speedster. When Chris Hilton, we found out before the start of the season, was injured and was going to miss that USC game, it was Kyle Parker who took Chris Hilton's place. Then against Southern Cal, he suffered a UCL injury. That's his elbow. And Brian Kelly said it was sort of a nerve issue, missed a game, returned. He's had 3 catches and a score on the season. You might remember he had against UCLA, had the beautiful 45-yard touchdown reception where Garrett Nussmeier down the right sideline just dropped it in a bucket to Kyle Parker. Well, Kyle Parker's season is now over. He's got a torn tricep, so his season is done. And that really thins out an LSU receiving core, which at the start of this season was arguably the deepest and most talented position on the entire roster. Now you look at where LSU is. Chris Hilton hasn't played this season. They hope to get him back on Saturday night against Ole Miss. And what I've been told about that bone bruise is that at this point, Chris Hilton is medically cleared to play. It now is just a pain, a tolerance, and ability thing where he's not going to hurt himself anymore. It's just, can he go perform at whatever percentage he is? And that's really on Chris Hilton to know the answer to that question. But we also learned that CJ Daniels, who has 20 receptions in 5 games, he is doubtful for this game, or questionable for this game, I should say. You look at that receiving core that's down Parker, potentially Hilton, and Daniels, and yes, you're very excited that Kyron Lacy is there. He's every bit the number one that you would expect him to be. Aaron Anderson has been one of the breakout stars of the offense this season. And there's plenty of other talent with Xavion Thomas, et cetera. But the point, Mason Taylor, of course, is a great pass catcher. But the point is, you are now consistently seeing that depth challenged. And Brian Kelly was asked a Thursday evening at his press gathering, with those guys out that we just mentioned, obviously with Kyle Parker out for the year, with CJ Daniels and Chris Hilton questionable for the ball game, who do you turn to next? Now, I want to point something out. Brian Kelly is usually very poised and confident in a press conference. I want you to listen to how unsure he is, and just the manner. And you're going to hear a lot, and we'll come back and talk about it, but just listen to how unsure he is when he's asked which wide receivers might step up.
Clearly, Xavion, will be, prominently, look to play a larger role for us. Aaron Anderson, certainly. And then, we feel like, with, Kamara and Pimpton and Tradez Green, we have 2 ball catchers there that can also be in our rotation, that certainly can help us out from that standpoint. Sheldon Sampson obviously is another receiver, that will obviously get an opportunity to compete for us, and Jelani Watkins. So we feel like certainly we'd love to have those guys, but if they're not available, We believe that we have guys that really can do a nice job for us.
He might have said, and certainly a dozen times each in that answer, which goes to show you Brian Kelly don't know those dudes. Like, he got 120 guys out there. There's guys who are going to contribute, and as a veteran coach, you're going to know those guys better than you are the freshmen and the guys that aren't contributing. The bottom line is he rattled off a bunch of names, guys. He don't know what they're going to do. What name can I think of? He said certainly and a dozen times. You're going to hear more from Brian Kelly, and I just want you to remember that to contrast how confidently he answers some other things, which goes to show you, I don't know that they know or feel like they have a great answer of what is going to come next after those guys that they had. Look, if you're running out there, Kyron Lacey, CJ Daniels, Aaron Anderson, Xavion Thomas, Chris Hilton, if he's healthy, you feel really good about that. Everyone else is kind of a question mark. It was interesting, the three names he mentioned that were all freshmen: Kamorian Pimpton, Trey'Dez Green, Jelani Watkins. But Pimpton and Green are 6'6" and 6'7" with gigantic wingspans, and I think you should be implementing those guys more into the offense because of the mismatches and the matchups they create. Jelani Watkins is a legit speed demon. We saw Jelani Watkins early in fall camp, maybe the first day of fall camp, catch a go route straight down the seam where he burned PJ Woodland by 7 yards. Jelani Watkins is a speed demon. You need someone to get on the field and just run fast down the field. Freshman can do that. He did have a foot or ankle injury in fall camp. He was in a boot for much of fall camp, which I think really set him back this season. But if you need a fast guy just to go and run a go route, Jelani Watkins can do it. And that's the first time Jelani Watkins has been dressed. That's the first time Brian Kelly has mentioned Jelani Watkins all season. Pimpton has 2 catches for 19 yards on the season. And Trey'Dez Green has 2 catches for 10, but he does have a touchdown that he caught against Nichols. So 2 gigantic guys that can't create mismatches. If you need them, they could be out there. So just something to file away, that if you do go out there against Ole Miss and you are thin and you don't have those veteran receivers available, the young guys that may be poised to step up. But the disappointing part, of course, is that Kyle Parker, done for the season. We'll wait until 2025 to see what he may be able to bring to the LSU Tigers. So offensively, I think we're all probably okay with LSU. Yes, Ole Miss's defense has been outstanding this season, and they cobbled together a defensive unit out of the transfer portal with some amazing guys. From Walter Nolan and Princely Umali Mielen, I'll never say it right, the kid from Florida, the defensive end. Chris Paul, the linebacker from Arkansas. Yes, they have got talented defensive players that have come together and played very well. But LSU is really good on offense as well, and I think LSU at home is going to move the ball and they're going to score points. I really don't worry about that tremendously. The bigger question is, can LSU defensively prevent from happening in Tiger Stadium what happened a year ago in Oxford, when Ole Miss scored 55 points and put up a record more than 700 yards against LSU, the most the Tigers have ever allowed in an SEC game. How much have they improved? Brian Kelly answers that. We'll talk about it next. It's Locked on LSU, your team every day. This is really cool, y'all. ZBiotics is a pre-alcohol probiotic drink. It's the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. So here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. So pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. So just remember, make ZBiotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. So your first step for best results, make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Step 2, drink responsibly. Pace yourself, hydrate, get a good night's sleep. Step 3, enjoy tomorrow. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. Go to zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege to learn more and to get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, They'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember, head to ZBiotics.com/LockedOnCollege. Use the code LockedOnCollege at checkout for 15% off. Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. Tell you what, our weekend is upon us. Our football weekend is upon us. So, time to get to FanDuel. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. Get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's at FanDuel.com. Tigers are getting 3.5 at home. Feels like a foolish bet to bet against the Tigers. Tiger Stadium at night. LSU getting points. How about it? Start with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's at FanDuel.com. FanDuel.com. Has LSU's defense improved? Yeah, they have. From a year ago? A year ago, LSU was the worst defense in program history. And the real tipping point moment wasn't a straw that broke the camel's back. It was a 10,000-pound bag of bricks that broke the camel's back when you allowed 700 yards and 55 points to Ole Miss. So interesting to me. Earlier this week when the players met with reporters, Greg Penn, who is a veteran player, wears the number 18 jersey, great leader on this team. All the players that met with reporters were asked about revenge. Do they want revenge in this game? And they all said the right thing. Mason Taylor, Garrett Nussmeier, Savion Jones, they all said the right thing. And then, forgive me, Greg Penn said the right thing, and it was Savion Jones. It was Savion Jones, the big defensive end, Savion Jones, who actually answered the question honestly.
Yeah, I definitely feel that way, especially I'm sure all the fans know that we out for revenge and, what happened to us last year, how they stormed the field and stuff like that. So I feel like not only just the players, but like the fans are excited to have that rematch.
Everybody said the right thing until you had the big 6'6", 285-pound defensive end who said, darn right, we're out for revenge. They stormed the field on us. They embarrassed us. It's time. Well, wanting it and exacting it are two very different things. Brian Kelly was asked about his defensive backs, and that's a huge part of this. And we've talked about that really all season if you've been here on the show. And not just the defensive backs, but the safeties in particular. But they started by asking about the cornerback position. And Brian Kelly, this was such a thorough answer. I really want you to pay attention to what he said. It's 58 seconds, so it's not a short answer. So I need you to kind of lock in and pay attention. But also contrast this to what you just heard a minute ago. How unsure Brian Kelly was, saying, certainly, and all the verbalized pauses, a dozen times throughout that soundbite, how unsure he was talking about who steps up at receiver. Listen to how definitive, authoritative Brian Kelly is talking about his defensive backs.
We're a team that has to be able to mix it up on the back end of our defense. If you just give them one static look, they're impossible to defend, and that's the nature of their offensive structure. You've got to be able to do some things that, give them, pre-snap and post-snap a different look, and that's really the nature of what we're going to have to do, and you have to execute it. And that's the rub, right? I mean, they do such a great job of having answers, for virtually everything you do. So we've got to mix it up. You can't play a lot of soft coverages or they just exploit you on the perimeter with quick game and run after the catch. And so, again, the challenges within this offense that we face are, perimeter throws, tackling in space, a lot of the things that we did poorly last year, we're going to have to play so much better this year.
It's a man who certainly knows what they have to do. Speaking of last year, Greg Penn was asked how and why They are so much better than a year ago. Now, keep in mind, I'm dovetailing all this together. Brian Kelly just said we have to be multiple. We can't just give them a static look. If we just stand there, they're going to run circles around us. Well, last year, what happened? Here was Greg Penn.
I definitely feel like this year we getting put in much better positions in order to, stop certain things. So I feel like compared to last year, it's just going to be, like a huge step up going against them.
By the way, I'm sorry, that was Savion Jones, but I want to play it again where listen to me saying we're being put in better positions. We're better prepared from a year ago.
I definitely feel like this year we getting put in much better positions in order to, stop certain things. So I feel like compared to last year, it's just going to be, like a huge step up going against them.
That is a direct shot at Matt House and that defense. We're being put in a better position this year than we were a year ago. Listen, physically, this LSU defense still has limitations. There's no doubt about it. Okay? Your best player is Harold Perkins. He's lost for the year. Your most dynamic player. Your best interior lineman, Jacobian Guillory, a fifth-year senior, lost for the year. Maybe your best defensive player right now is Whit Weeks, who's outstanding, but he's a sophomore. You're seeing P.J. Woodland and Gabe Relaford and Ahmad Bro and Dom McKinley and Deshaun Spears. It's 5 true freshmen I just rattled off to you. Like, they're going to keep getting better. Physically, there are some limitations on this defense, but Savion Jones, who's been around forever, just told you they are just being put in a much better situation this year than they were a year ago. So now listen to Brian Kelly when he was asked about communication. Okay, you're going to play this team, this offense, this tempo offense that wants to go, wants to get it on the perimeter, wants to make you miss tackles, break big runs, play with tempo. Brian Kelly was asked about communication at the line of scrimmage, and he actually pivoted that question into what he really wanted to talk about.
No, the safeties have to do a great job. I mean, I think, when you're playing an up-tempo offense like this, it's easier to get the calls with the front seven. It's a lot more difficult because you're flipping, from hash to hash, corners and safeties, and getting aligned to formations. It's much more of a communication game with the back end of your defense. That's where you have to be spot on. That's where you got to get your nickel lined up. Or, obviously from our standpoint, we're not playing with a particular, 3 linebacker set. We're playing, with a rover set. So, getting them lined up. Is the ball in the middle of the field? Is it a right call? Is it a left call? Those are absolutely crucial. And that's the back end of the defense. And that's the area that we spent a lot of time over the last 10 days.
That's the area we spent a lot of time in the last 10 days. If you've been with us, this is going to resonate. If not, let me hit a quick reset for you. So after LSU beat South Alabama, Brian Kelly in his post-game press conference mentioned we have been rolling in all these guys in the secondary, especially at safety. And come Tuesday, meaning the Tuesday of the open date week last Tuesday, it's like, we're not going to be rotating anymore. We got to commit to the guys that we're going to play. Now, that's not to say that anybody in the secondary is going to go play 60 or 70 snaps, but ultimately, when you're playing 6 safeties and 5 cornerbacks, those rotations are going to get pared down. So Brian Kelly's telling you, we spent 10 days preparing for this game, trying to get our communication on the back end right, because that's where we faltered so badly a year ago. When we had the coverage bust, receivers running free in the secondary, the problem was we were not communicating at all, and that's why we had coverage bust. We got to fix that. Well, can young guys do that? Deshaun Spears is a true freshman who may have the highest ceiling of all of your safeties, but is he ready for this moment in this game against that offense? Got to answer that question. That's something that needed to be answered the last 10 days. If not, are Sage Ryan and Jordan Gilbert your best options? 2 guys that have played the most football of any safeties that you have. Brian Kelly said last week they're considering the possibility of moving Major Burns back to safety. Could that be? And that's why they're cross-trading other players, including Kylan Jackson at the star position and Javen Toviano at star. Why? What if you have to move Major Burns back to safety? Why would you do that? You need veteran guys you can trust who can communicate on the back end. Can LSU do that? It's that simple. Like, Ole Miss is a really good team. They're well coached. They got a veteran quarterback. They have some really skilled players on the offensive side of the ball. Yes. Look, they're flawed as well. This is an Ole Miss team that went out there in the first month of the season, played absolutely nobody, was scoring 60 points a game. They finally got into conference play. They get popped in the mouth by Kentucky and lose 20-17. And then they go on the road to South Carolina and win 27-3. The defense was very good, but the offense wasn't. The offense that scored 76 against Furman, 52 against Middle Tennessee, 40 at Wake Forest, 52 against Georgia Southern. Then you play Kentucky at home and it's 20-17. Then you go to Columbia, South Carolina, it's 27-3. I mean, your low watermark prior was 40. And now all of a sudden you can't hit 30? Listen, their offensive line is banged up. Their best receiver, Trey Harris, sounds like he's going to play, but how effective will he be? And then Jackson Dart, who's thrown for a bunch of yards, against two SEC teams, has really struggled beyond 20 yards to complete passes. So this is a game where some of those flaws, some of those warts for Ole Miss that have showed up the past couple of weeks could be exploited in a massive environment in Tiger Stadium. But LSU's got to be able to communicate on the back end. They got to tackle. It's that simple. You do that, you can make Ole Miss have to drive the length of the field. You prevent the quick back-breaking scoring drives. Maybe LSU finds themselves in a really close game. They have a chance to win late. Okay. Can they win that game late? Will they win that game late? Give you a pick on it next. It's Locked On LSU, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash, receive unlimited 1% deposit bonuses, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For specific disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. When we were in Dallas for SEC Football Media Days, we always do this exercise everybody does, where you try to go through and you pick win-losses and what your predictive record is and how you think things are going to play out. And it's always interesting. You know, you fill out your projected order of finish in the league and you're a preseason all-conference team. And then they tee it up and kick it off and start playing games. And then you see how much you know or how much you don't know. Like, I'd venture a guess that nobody in Dallas thought that Alabama was going to fall in Nashville to Vanderbilt. But upsets happen. It's kind of part of the thing and how it all works out. For me, when I go through that exercise, I always look at a schedule and I pick wins and losses. And then based on what you see on the field when games start, kind of determines if I either confirm or disconfirm what I thought. Before the season, I picked LSU to win this game, knowing full well that I think Ole Miss, 1-85, is a better team, a more talented roster today than LSU. But I picked LSU for a couple of simple reasons. Number one, it's not just who you play, but when and where you play them. You hear me say that all the time. For Ole Miss, this is 7 consecutive weeks. It's 3 consecutive conference games. It's back-to-back road conference games. It is very difficult to win back-to-back road conference games. A year ago, LSU had that situation, back-to-back road conference games. They lost at Ole Miss, found themselves in a dogfight at Missouri that they pulled out late. It's hard to win back-to-back road conference games. That's what Ole Miss is tasked with doing now. Also, LSU is coming off a bye. So while Ole Miss has had 7 consecutive games, or Saturday will be 7 consecutive games, 3 consecutive conference games, 2 really physical games against Kentucky, and then on the road at South Carolina. LSU played South Alabama and then kicked up their feet, try to get healthy. And when you look at that injury report, it's pretty clear Tigers needed the week to get healthy, because even with that week, they're still a pretty banged up football team right now. So I love the spot for LSU. I could also point out the fact that Ole Miss hasn't won in Baton Rouge since 2008. That was a Jevin Sneed team that came in against the Malvito experience at defensive coordinator and hung 30 on LSU that day. Since then, LSU won a close one in 2010. You had the Odell punt return in 2012. The top 5 Ole Miss team in 2014 when LSU won that game in a game where Logan Stokes caught his only career touchdown pass. They stormed the field. They carried Trey Quinn off. If you remember that iconic picture of Trey Quinn crowd surfing with the students who had stormed the field. 2016, 2018, it just hasn't mattered. The COVID year, even the COVID year, as bad as LSU was defensively, that was a game in the rain where Kayshon Boutte had set an SEC single game record with over 300 receiving yards. And then 2 years ago in 2022, the Tigers won in Baton Rouge as well, a game where Ole Miss came in undefeated and got up early, and then LSU proceeded to roll the Rebels right out of town. It's just a place that Ole Miss hasn't had a lot of success. All of the intangibles in this game, night game, Tiger Stadium, celebrating 100 years of Death Valley, all of them line up with LSU. And sometimes when I'm unsure about who to pick, I look at venue, head coach, and quarterback. Well, venue is undeniable. The venue, it's LSU. It's in Baton Rouge. The head coach, I could argue that's a push. Brian Kelly is the winningest active head coach in college football, but Lane Kiffin is as good an offensive mind as they come in the game. I think sometimes Lane's aggression can work against him, and that might be the case coming up this Saturday in Tiger Stadium. And then if you look at the quarterback play, Jackson Dart and Garrett Nussmeier are very good veteran players, but Dart has played a whole lot more football than Nussmeier. It's just such an even game that this feels like a coin flip to me. I love to be convicted about a game when I pick it. And usually I am. But this is one where I am not. I do not have a very strong feeling about who is going to win this game. And I hate to tell you that there's one thing that I'm very convicted about, and that's that I think the game goes under the total. I think we are about to see a mirror image of LSU's season opener against USC. I think we are going to see a game where neither coach has a great desire to play a game in a shootout like we saw a year ago. I think you were going to see both teams try to run the football, establish the line of scrimmage, play a little keep away from the other team's offense. And I think this is a game that is going to go under the number. And the winner is probably going to be someone who does one of two things. Probably gets a lucky bounce. I'll remind you, in that USC game, LSU forced 3 fumbles in that game. They recovered none of them. They just literally were unlucky by the bounce of the ball. The ball literally didn't bounce their way. Just one. Just recover one of those fumbles. Get one extra possession. Probably win that game against Southern Cal. So who might be able to force that turnover? And who makes a play late? In the fourth quarter of that USC game, LSU had the lead and had 2 possessions with the chance to go up 2 scores. Couldn't do it. Had a 3rd and 1. Kamorian Pimpton missed a block on the right end. Defensive end blew up the play. John Emery in the backfield. LSU would turn it over. USC got the ball, went down the field, scored the game-winning touchdown. They made the play late. LSU didn't. So I think this is going to be a very similar game. One that I think is too close to call. If I'm a betting man, a handicapper, I don't play this game at all. I just sit back, watch, and enjoy, except I play the under because I think this game is going under the total. And my hope is that LSU makes the play late. I don't know that I've seen anything to take me off of my mark of where I was in the preseason. LSU probably isn't as good defensively as I thought or hoped they might be, and certainly with no Harold Perkins, no Jacobian Guillory, that weakens you. I will say one thing pretty definitively. If I knew Trey Harris were not playing in this game, I would confidently pick LSU. But the fact that he is going to play in this game gives me a little pause because there's nobody that LSU has in that secondary that can guard Trey Harris, which means you're going to have to guard him with numbers, which means the other side of the field is going to be open, which means you are going to be susceptible to the big play in the passing game. which is why I probably have a slight lean toward Ole Miss. If I had to just close my eyes and pick a team, I'd probably take Ole Miss to win a close game. But I have very little confidence in that pick at all. I think this has to be a day where Tiger Stadium behaves like Tiger Stadium. You know, I know Tiger Stadium, sometimes people criticize for the fans that leave early or sit on their hands or whatever the case may be. And you know, I will never criticize a fan for any of that. But here's what I do know and believe. That Tiger Stadium is the best big game venue in this sport that we all love. There is no place like it when it's right. And in this day and age of college football with massive expansion and every game on television, it's hard to get 100,000 people to come early, to stay late, and to be loud the whole time. It has to be the right circumstance. And Saturday, there's those ingredients for that. You have a top 10 team coming in. You've already lost one game. You have to go win this game to keep your playoff hopes alive. There's just enough confidence that you can win the game and just enough concern that you might not, that breeds the anxiety in fans that creates a pretty special atmosphere. So if Tiger Stadium is right, as I suspect it will be, that could end up being the difference on Saturday night between LSU and Ole Miss. We'll see if the Tigers can go get it done. On our crossover episode, I think I was something in the neighborhood of 30-27 or something like that, 27-24 in favor of Ole Miss. I make that pick just to make a pick with virtually no confidence whatsoever. My hope is that LSU is able to flip what happened out in Las Vegas. That in the fourth quarter, when LSU has the ball, up a score with a chance to go up 2 scores, or up down a score late with a chance to go take the lead, they make the play. They went on that drive late in the fourth quarter against USC where Nussmeier missed Aaron Anderson on a pass that probably would have been a touchdown, and maybe LSU wins that game. Instead, they settle for a field goal that ties it. They would end up losing it. Can LSU get the ball to bounce their way? Can they make that play in the final 2 minutes of the fourth quarter to put away Ole Miss? If they can, and Tiger Stadium is going to be awful special, and we'll have a game we'll talk about forever. We'll see how it all plays out, and you better believe we'll be here talking about it. All right, that'll do it for us here on today's episode of Locked On LSU. Hey, if you're new, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video, and let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here every single day for Locked On LSU, your team every day.